Welcome to Lucid Dreaming and the Cube of Space with the Alchemical Cabala. This week, we come to our third and final mother letter of the Hebrew Aleph Beit. There are three letters in the major arcana since they follow the Hebrew Aleph Beit. And they form the axis on the cube. Here they are. So this week we enter the current of the letter Shin. The letter Shin means tooth or fang. It's associated with the sacred fire or the Holy Spirit of creation. Fire liberates spirit from the constraints and the limitations of form. Are there multiple people showing up on your screen?
Yes.
Great.
Just
Thank
in the
you.
sidebar.
Yeah, that's what very nice. Okay.
Not in
So
mine.
this current on the cube is the central current that connects the north side of the cube, which remember is the tower key, the key of Mars, power, raw force, and spiritual awakening. It connects that side of the cube to the south, the side of the sun key, which is the heart and spiritual humanity. So here's our key for the week. Key number 20, Judgment. It's interesting that in the major arcana, this is the only key to show four major figures in the key. Most of the time, we just have the superconscious, the self-conscious, and the subconscious represented in one form or another. But here we have four main figures. As the number 20, and in Cabala, we read the numbers backwards. This is the only key in the major arcana to show the power of zero, which is the superconscious, operating through the agency of two, the subconscious. All right. I'm going to make this very simple. This key in the major arcana, this key is the key to your liberation. This is the key that evolves consciousness to and invokes what we call lucid dreaming, or the entry of our self-conscious mind into the inner planes. First, as the astral plane, or what's sometimes called the fourth dimension. So if you remember nothing else about this key, judgment, remember it is the key to your liberation. So the mind will say, liberation of what? This key is the liberation of your self-conscious awareness and activity from the limitations of the third dimension. You probably won't get a more simple, real, and direct explanation of the function of this key and the letter Shin in the tarot. So let's look briefly at where this key falls in the Book of Wisdom in the 3x7 layout. Here we go. So what we see here at the top is the Lover's key, right? We see the self-conscious and subconscious and superconscious at the very top, the column, in perfect harmony, in love. This is the totality of our consciousness at this state in harmony. Our self-conscious Adam, our subconscious Eve, and our superconscious. The great angel here above, which is represented as Raphael. So just below this key is the transformation key or transition key. So we have the lovers here united above, and then the Scorpio key of transition redirects the Scorpio force within. And at the bottom, we see the result. Key 20 invokes the fire of the Holy Spirit within you and unifies your self-conscious and subconscious mind. This sacred union brings about a new birth within you. This new aspect of you. That is the divine child shown here from this union. This divine child, who is you, is both conscious and ruler of the world to come. So in short, the child shown here is that part of you that is born within your heart and awakens you more and more on the spiritual path. It's the part of you that awakens within your dreams. This key shows a major attainment and goal on the path to liberation, and it is inevitable for any and all who diligently do the work. So let's get to the work here and enter into the spirit of this key. Give this key your attention as if you've never seen it, and whatever speaks to you, please unmute yourselves one at a time and share.
I'll just jump real fast, and because something that, as you were describing and sharing on this, just noticing that the angel Gabriel, just the fact that the horn is directed towards the child, um, and so I'm looking at this as again with especially in conjunction with the lover's key and the transition key as well, of just kind of just that inner awakening, that inner maturity, that growing up, that evolution, just all of those things. And I say it because the just with that, it's kind of just that awake. I'm thinking of like inner child work and all that. Like it's a similar type of thing of that inner child, inner adult, and just kind of the establishing that relationship and growing from there. And I guess the trend now is like reparenting yourself, that type of thing. Just those type of elements, but just that the fact that you're in certain techniques where you can be in dialogue with that inner child, tapping an inner child there, again, using non-dominant hands and all that. But just I say all that because it's just it seems that with the horn being blown in the direction of where it is, it's just kind of that kind of that connection and that awakening and that whole process. So, but yeah, no, it's a wonderful card.
Thank you, Easy. Very well said. I love the inner child part.
So,
That was
sorry,
no, you go.
Patrick. Okay, I was just going to say, just based on first looking at this card, um, and having a personal experience, and when Easy talks about the inner child, I see kind of like this, the masculine and feminine. So it's almost as if the inner masculine or like this relationship that I have with the masculine or like my interpretation of like how my father was and then like maybe the feminine and like how my mother was and like the inner feminine that lives in the inner masculine that lives in me, they are also kind of being rebirthed and being called to a higher like or aligned communion. But then there's also this third entity that's this divine child inside my heart. So I don't, it's a little unformulated what I was going to say, but I think there's to that as well.
That was perfectly said. Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if it was intentional, but Easy was talking about the three cards, the lovers and the transition and the judgment, and I'm seeing uh, the the cycle of birth and rebirth, and the lovers in the one the top transition and create a family. I don't.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
that's what struck me.
No, very well put. Excellent, excellent insight.
And just say real brief in that the I really like that because just looking at it, whether you go down or whether you go up, either way,
Hmm.
there
You want the three
there's a
by
level.
seven?
Well, what no, well, just that. Well, I'm sorry, I was saying well, the lever's key and then the transition key and the judgment key we're looking at. Whether you go like up or down directionally,
Hmm.
there's an element of sacrifice,
Hmm.
just whichever way. Because looking at the key going up, it it was making me think of um like Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, that whole, the great mythology that's existed for, the
Yeah.
was it the man with 10,000 faces or the hero with 10,000 faces, but that whole thing of in some at some point there is in just in every story that has been out there for every archetype of this, there's there needs to be a level of sacrifice, and at times a level of like a renunciation to then move on to that. And so I look at this key where it's like just thinking about it from a standpoint of the because the transition key, right? It's always that that clearing away, if you will. And it's just kind of the what are you willing to, it's the old Henry Ford quote. It's like, tell me what you want, then tell me what you're willing to sacrifice for it.
Hmm.
Just that kind of thing. And you know, I, I say this too because I have a number of, I'm very grateful for this number of friends and family who are starting to have kids, and just the level, I mean, if you're a parent, the level of sacrifice that is there is fill in the blank. It's wild.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and it's a wonderful thing. And just kind of that, again, just that more of, because part of this also feels like completion too, in a certain way, but I'll stop. That's just what's coming up, but yeah, it's wonderful.
Nice. Thank you.
Can I say something? Can you? Oh, good. You made the key big. That's what I was going to ask. What is just really sticking out to me in this picture right now is that all three of the aspects are coming out of the blackness, the fertile ground, the Ansifor, and they're raising up into the 12. Each one is growing in the 12 different aspects of the personality. And I see the blue mind behind that, and it's all raising up into that. But yeah, I saw the whole lover's keys coming down to the family of this birth of this divine child, us, our divine self, being born as we go through the processes of the transformation above, the transformation key and all the changes that brings forth. But they're actually rising up out of that fertile ground. That is just, it's just very evident that that's what that blackness is there to me.
Great insights, Rachel. Thank you for sharing them.
Yeah, they look like coffins to me, and there's not a lid on the little one's coffin. There's lids. The older folks, the parents are going to leave before the little one. Their lids are ready to close. That sounds depressing.
Well,
but the child rises up.
Yeah.
Or the parents could have been in there before, and now they're emerging, and the child never was contained in anything, really, possibly. Like the child is like the newness, and the parents are awakened to a newness
through the child. Yeah.
The child is the plant that's growing up out of that, the seeds of the father and the mother, and it's very beautiful.
The child's coffin is square, and their coffins are rectangle, and the child is the stone of wisdom. He's the
very nice
regenerated personality.
The 4 aspects. That's cool.
Could you put the 3 cards back back on the screen?
I just want to say I love how the subconscious is receiving the gift from the angel here. The square. Okay.
I see a piercing. The trumpet from the angel's mouth goes across, like across a dimension there, where it's extended, and because it has that oval at the end, it's the top of spirit, and
of Tiferet, because it's yellow, gold.
Oh yeah. So that seed or spirit is piercing through, in a sense, here between even though the rays of that yellow light have this piercing
like
appearance.
A tooth or a fang.
Yeah, I find that's kind of what sticks out to me, no pun intended.
They're piercing the veil.
Very nice.
Like Gabriel is he's behind what's happening in the High Priestess card, and he's doing the work or something, and these rays are what pierce that veil.
Interesting.
Well, I haven't heard anybody mention the icebergs in the background. they're in the middle of the ocean in Alaska, and they're freezing their butts off, and they're completely nude. So
they're doing just fine.
You know, if you look at these three cards, it's almost like the levers is the birth, and then death, and then resurrection.
Yes. Excellent.
So the levers, that's like levers, procreation, birth, and then like Easy was saying, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, that's the arc of every story. You know, the hero sets off in glorious adventure, but then it hits a snag, which would be the death key, and then overcomes the obstacle, the nemesis, and then rises victorious in the end.
Very nice.
So you've got the whole story right there.
So, Patrick, to speak to your observation of the icebergs in the background. So the typical explanation that's given here is that, you know, this is key 20s, and we first see the stream of consciousness from the high priestess in the tarot, where it begins. This is the last key to show the water. This is where it comes to its formation and end. And so one thing that's occurring in this key is the waters of mind have come into formation. They're frozen. Who is it that keeps saying that matter is spirit slowed down to the vibration that you can see it? I keep hearing or reading that places. But for us, what's occurring here is the being, our self-conscious and subconscious have come together in this union and are now functioning as one in our new creation on a new plane. This new plane is the fourth dimension. This key is rising up from the coffins of the third dimension in consciousness, all of it. And they're all focused and drawn up by the superconscious self here as Gabriel. This is waking up within the inner planes. And it's the perfect formula for our subconscious to bring about that state of consciousness.
Man,
interesting. Go ahead.
The man is passive. He's got the X, which means it's given up his ability to do anything. He's given it over to the subconscious, allowing her to be active, to be in charge. Yeah, like in.
Sorry.
You know, it's the angel that's calling the regenerated being, the inner being out. So that indicates that, you know, like we were talking, Jesse, we were talking about the inner being waking up, you know, and the way Patrick said that, you know, you've already got a vision, you know, it's in there, and that's what's being raised from the dead, you see, because that's been buried. Not that it's dead, it's just that it's buried. And so to awaken and allow your inner being to come forth and express, you can't do it yourself. Here the angel is doing it, or God is doing it.
Yep.
So it's not, you can't think your way through this. it's an energetic event. It's a realization. That's why they call it realization. But you have to let God do it. You see, it's bigger than you are.
That's really well said. Thank you, Michael. This key gives our subconscious priming. It primes us to be prepared for this inner experience. It helps us to be right, to ripen within, to be ready to awaken more, and to be called forth, to respond.
So I've never noticed this before, but Adam looks like the X chromosome and Eve looks like the Y.
That's interesting.
Don't
I've
that?
never noticed that before
Yes.
either. Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
Y looks like.
Yeah. That's interesting. So
and
everyone probably knows, but if you don't, she spells has an L and he's a U and an X. So that's the Latin for light.
It's also EAO. She's
Very nice.
Isis. She's Isis, and the little boy has the beak that's like a Typhon or Apophis, the destroyer, and he is like Osiris. You know, like in the middle pillar or
Isis, Apophis, Osiris.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny you say it's a little boy because I always think it's a little girl. You know.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. We don't see their front, do we?
No, it's not identified.
Well, yes. So we don't see it in the next key either, but we see them growing up in the next key. The world key. We see the world dancer, which is a combination, or the divine androgen, of which is perfectly balanced, masculine and feminine, male, female, yin, yang, all of the things, in, out, up, down, the reconciliation of all aspects into a new state of
What card
consciousness.
is it? The sun card that has both the boy and the girl?
Yes, the sun key does. That's the sun, the key of the heart and regenerated humanity. And it shows the young boy and girl as the regenerated self-conscious and subconscious mind. Yes. All right. Anyone else before we move forwards? Okay. Thank you all for sharing your brilliant light and insights as always. Would someone who has not shared please read this for us for the class, please?
Like the Hebrew letter Shin itself, man's spiritual nature has a threefold aspect. Three flames are rising from a single base of the letter, as though one large fire was expressing itself in three rays. Similarly, man's own self-consciousness, subconsciousness, and the newborn regenerate being are three parts of one whole, depicted here as human figures, which the angel is calling forth from a condition of separation, that they may function as one being in newfound liberation.
Thank you, Patrick. Excellent. That's from Jewels of the Wise, page 205. So here's a few thoughts you might find worth contemplating and interesting in regards to the cube of space and our judgment key featuring the angel Gabriel or Gabriel, however you prefer. Gabriel means God is my strength. So let's look at this. Rachel brought up an excellent point how the self-conscious was looking up towards the piercing 12 rays. Here are those 12 rays on the cube of space. They define the cube of space as the intelligences of the zodiac. Note how they flow. Look at the upper level of the self-conscious. That's very clear. And you follow the currents, the general flow of the cube of space is counterclockwise, flowing from east to west, or from the inner to the outer, and then back again to the east, back into the inner. At the start of next year, we will, in this class and course, be immersing ourselves and circumambulating these outer currents and paths that form the cube of space. And as they are the living intelligences of the zodiac, we'll be working these paths primarily through our practice of lucid dreaming with the keys. So in regards to this, remember this is one of the great benefits of the Western tradition and Cabala. It is that immersion in Cabala and the Western mystery tradition allows the soul to accumulate multiple lifetimes of experience within the span of one incarnation. Right. For anyone that might have been around for our first Zoom classes, which have now been over 2 years ago, you might recall this image. This shows the Kaaba, or Islam's most holy site. Note how the pilgrims are circumambulating the Kaaba and its cubic container in an anti-clockwise direction. It's also interesting that inside of this structure, there are 3 main pillars that hold the structure up. If you've never seen that, you can Google it. It's pretty interesting. You might also find it interesting that the angel Gabriel, as seen in the Judgment Key, is the primary messenger of the divine in both Islam and Christianity. In Islam, it's said that the angel Gabriel is Allah's chief messenger. And it's said that Gabriel revealed and mentored the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as he brought him the Quran. In both the Bible and the Quran, Gabriel said to have announced the birth of a divine child to Mary. Mary's response was a humble acceptance of the will of the All. Now, look at the primary figures here in the Judgment Key. We got that. Now, compare in essence this image with that of the Judgment Key. We're coming into the time of the year of the Christian mysteries, with the birth of the Christos, as we near the winter solstice and focus more of our attention on our inner life. One more interesting thing about the cube is in the Bible, you read in Revelations, talks about a new dwelling place or a new heaven, right? Descending into manifestation. If you read Revelations 21:16, you'll see that this great dwelling place or city called Jerusalem is in the shape and dimensions of a cube. It's as wide as it is high as it is long. And Jerusalem means the city of peace. Now, remember this. All of this is within you. Cabala is not a religion or a set of belief systems that you must adhere to. Cabala simply means to receive or the reception. Everything that's shown in the tarot or the royal path are the spiritual processes that occur within you on the spiritual path. The real story is about you in this life now. Key 20 shows one of the most important steps we take on this journey. The divine birth occurs within us when we unite our self-conscious and our subconscious and the superconscious. When we come into this divine union or alchemical marriage, as spoken of in the Western mysteries, we let go of the outer world more and more and are obedient to the self within. A still small voice within our heart and core. The more we do this, the more our consciousness is liberated from the third dimensional limitations. And we move more consciously into the fourth dimensions of the astral planes. And then, as the Sufis say, we move ever nearer the one. This is the heart or spiritual humanity shown in the Sun Key. Some might call that the fifth dimension. This is the way. The kingdom of the sun. This concludes this portion of our class on the letter Shin, the Holy Spirit, and the mother letter of fire. And remember, it's the key of liberation. Thank you all for your participation in light. The floor is now open for any questions or comments.
It's a beautiful picture.